My name is Sid Alinik, and I got a special guest with me. I got Aaron Baker from After Horizons, and we are talking Black Eyed Children.
Yeah, talking about Black Eyed
You're
Children.
listening to Fallen Hour Radio.
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
If you're not of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, you're not welcome here.
In the middle of the night, ghosts tried to talk to me.
It's interdimensional, so we are living in a multi-dimensional environment.
He's bending down, doing something. He says he sees a shadow. He turns around and there's nobody there.
The power of Christ compels you.
I want you to tell me whether you remember what happened to you when you died.
I went blind. Then I had an hemorrhage and I fell asleep. And I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
How can we kill you, Bill?
One man, God.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. And tonight's episode, we actually this wasn't even taking some time off. It was like we were forced to freaking not even do anything.
Right, with COVID and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just nuts out there. I don't know.
I went into quarantine first, and we got sick, and my kids were fine. Stupid. It's like they run around and keeping us busy, and like we're dying
Right.
and trying to do stuff for them. And ours only lasted for like maybe 3 days. And then after that, Marcus went under, and then he was in quarantine. So this all panned out within like a month.
Right.
And then we had to deal with a lot of other issues, and it just took the entire month. And I was like, man, I was bummed out because freaking we launched every year. Well, last year we launched our Halloween season, and it was pretty big last year.
Right.
And we were trying to shoot for that this year, and then it just didn't
happen. No, COVID
so
nothing happened.
now we're just trying to fight our way back to getting something out there for the listeners anyways.
Right. At least try to get some normality going on.
Something going on with it. And we're planning on maybe, I don't know, doing some, well, I think every holiday we're going to be trying to do something. So we're doing something for Halloween, we're doing something for Thanksgiving, and then we're going to do something cool for Christmas.
That'd be sweet.
And Marcus already has some really cool music coming for Christmas. It's like Christmas themed. It's kind of cool. You got to hear it.
Christmas, but like that paranormal aspect.
Christmas bells, yeah. He does
Creepy Christmas bells.
I just showed Aaron my Krampus costume tonight, and my jingle bells that I got that were
There were white balls all over it.
Yeah. Well, tonight's episode. Now, this one is, I don't know. I've kind of heard Black Eyed Children over the years, and I know it's become more popular within the past 20 years, is what they're saying. It's like a lot of the research I was doing.
Yeah, like I heard like there's reports like scarcely like back in the 50s, but it didn't get popular until about the 80s and 90s.
So one of the ones I was reading about was that this was almost along the lines of, I mean, this is like one of the ones. It was like, I think it's like Wikipedia or something, and they were saying this is almost along the lines of how Slender Man came to be, but then there's all these other accounts.
Like a phenomenon where somebody created it, just kind of spread the word, and then it blew up.
Yeah, and then people are starting to like do their own stories and stuff and saying it was and like real. But then again, you have all these accounts of people who say they've actually had experiences like this.
Right.
Like where they actually experienced the Black Eyed Children coming to the door, and it's exactly like the writer, or if there was a writer, said it was.
Right. Yeah, I guess it'd be pretty easy for anybody to make a story up like that.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, sometimes things happen. I mean, people put out, whether that's like fiction or nonfiction, whatever, or these fake stories, and then people actually have these things happen to them. Like It's an actual real event, or if it's, I don't know, getting into the paranormal aspect of things. Like, what if certain stories actually bring something to life, and then you start having these experiences around the world that were attributed, almost like we did the This Man Conspiracy, and that was almost like a fake. They're thinking like it was a fake phenomenon.
Yeah. Then after you hear about it, it's just in your head. So then
then things start
happens.
happening. Yeah.
But it could just be because, you were listening about it, and then you psych yourself out.
Yeah.
And then, bam, then it's there, and then you have your own experience.
Right. It can be like one of the freaking The Ring. You die in 7 days kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then you hear about it or watch it, and then it's going to happen. And that's kind of what I've kind of been feeling about it. But then again, there's like all these like, what are these things? Are they aliens? Are they demons? Or, you know what I mean? It's like a weird kind of myth or folklore that comes along with it.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the reports that I've seen on here, people don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's all mixed up. Some people think like they're ghosts or demons and aliens.
Right.
You know, it's just there's a broad scale of what they could be.
Right.
You never know. It might just be like imaginary, and you just buy into it.
Right. It's possible. And I was telling my wife on the way here too. I went back to our house and we went to shopping, and we're listening to this. And every time I get into the thought of like aliens or things like that, it just freaks. I don't know. I love aliens, but there's certain aspects of the like ideology of like things that come along with it. So like abductions, people losing time. They don't know where like the past 15 minutes came from or where it was lost. And that's one of my biggest fears. Like, I don't fear much, but getting into, I don't know, me losing time or ending up somewhere and I don't know how I got there, or just realizing that I've lost the past half hour or hour and I don't know where that went. I don't know what I did for the past hour, and that freaks me out.
Dude, that happens to me sometimes, like actually on a pretty regular basis. Like, I'll just be
Really?
like doing stuff, and
Yeah.
like next thing you know, it's like freaking like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, there's no way I
Right.
was doing something for that long.
It freaks me out.
Or doing, like you said, driving on autopilot pretty much.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like you're focused on everything else, your phone, the radio. Then all of a sudden you're at your destination. Like, I don't even remember
Yeah.
driving this far.
Yeah, it creeps me out. There was one episode now, because I believe that, I mean, to me, these seem more of, like I was telling you, it seems more Men in Blackish and more alien than anything, because of some of the accounts that we've heard and we were listening to and researching. And I was telling my wife, I was like, there's a scene in freaking, what is it? The Fourth Kind.
Oh, I fucking hate that movie.
Yeah, and have you watched it lately though?
I haven't watched it since it came out.
Right. See,
Dude,
okay,
I was
so
like paranoid for like ever of owls being like on my window
God, you have
because of that
to
movie.
you have to get the movie again and watch it, because you'd be like, it wasn't that bad. But in your head, it's like, oh my God, this movie was like freaking horrible.
That movie was bad.
It was, and it
scared
and
the shit out of me.
it was one of my top 5 scariest movies I've ever watched at the time. Like, had to do with aliens because it freaked me out, and I told her about it for years, and she's never watched it. And then we finally sat down and watched it, and she was like, that movie wasn't scary. And I was like, it was to me. It's still scary to me. But there's a scene where the psychologist, and she records everything inside of her like tape recorder.
Right.
And she's talking to trauma patients, and she almost like, well, she does like what, hypnotherapy on them, and then they're able to remember things that they've
I'm
lost.
sure that's what it is.
And their trauma suppressed their memory, and that's one of the things that freaks me out. And there's a scene in the movie, spoiler alert, of where she's listening to her recordings, and she goes through her normal recordings of her reminding herself of like notes and things, and then it gets to this point of where she starts just screaming and freaking out, and then she remembers, or tries to remember, like, this was the time when her first account where she was actually taken by one of these aliens or whatever it was.
Right.
And she had no recollection of it, only until she listened to the audio. And that freaks me out. And I'm like, God, what if I do a podcast and I don't remember anything, and go back and edit the video and freaking I get taken or something?
All of a sudden you have like flashbacks of getting pro.
Yeah. But let's get into some of what you got. I mean, I was telling Aaron, I was like, I have at least like 2 stories. And he's like, okay. And I was like, what's your story? And you tell one of my stories.
Very
I'm like,
first story.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, that's like my closer.
Yeah.
And sorry about your luck. Well, I think let's just describe what people think they look like. You know? Out of most of the accounts, most people say they dress like they're from the 50s.
Right.
And the kids are about 6 to 13 years old, roughly. And there's some accounts where it's just one kid, but most of the accounts they're like either in pairs or there's like at least 3 of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
2 to 3. But there is some that it's just one kid, and they always speak in like a monotone voice, like this weird kind of like almost like they're like have a script. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
And they're just like, "Can we come in?"
Or they're
thing.
being controlled by something,
Like,
maybe.
Right, like they're like getting the message sent to them pretty much.
Right.
When you see these kids, I guess you get like immediate feeling of dread too.
Oh, right.
And
Well, that's I mean, that comes along with a lot of these urban legends.
Right.
Is like I was listening to this Bigfoot podcast, and they say that when you see Bigfoot, it's like you get this immediate, just like exactly like you said, it's an immediate feeling of dread.
right,
And it's like, and they even believe that Bigfoot's possibly like alien.
right, everybody's an
something.
alien.
Yeah.
Freaking yeah, it's just crazy. They along with their monotone voice, I guess they knock when they knock on your door. A lot of the accounts I've seen, they don't ever use the doorbell. They knock on the door.
Oh, strange.
So it's like,
So it's like maybe they don't know how to use it, or
right, but like how long has doorbells been around? You know?
right.
Like even before like there was electric doorbells, there's still like you pull
Knockers.
the cord
Oh, yeah, right.
and have a bell ring.
Yeah.
And the knockers and stuff like that. But I guess they knock on the door, and I guess they have like a slow melodic knock to like match your monotone voice, I guess, just like,
Oh, strange.
you know. And there's been reports too that say you hear that knocking and you don't answer it, you know, because whatever, you know, like maybe it's freaking, well, I don't want to say freaking Jehovah Witness.
That's like the late at night ones.
Right. But well, the accounts say come all throughout the day.
Jehovah's
It isn't just
yeah.
at night. But yeah, like somebody at the door, you know, handing pamphlets out.
No offense to
You know-
Jehovah's Witnesses out there,
Right,
by the
sorry.
way.
That's just the first thing that came to my head.
It's like a thing that's
I'm
made
Mormon,
fun of.
and
though.
Mormons do the same thing
Yeah,
all the time.
it's so funny.
But anyway, like if you don't answer the door, or you do notice that there's kids out there get creeped out, go to a different room or something, they like will knock on your back door too,
Oh, strange.
and on windows and stuff like that. And like there's one story that I was hearing, which it was like a short story, so I didn't even put it in here. But a guy got freaked out and like he heard the knocking all around his house.
Oh, nuts.
Like he didn't answer it because they freaked him out when he seen it, and went and hid pretty much, and boom, knocking all around their house for like an hour.
Wow.
And not only was there like knocking, but like his wife didn't hear it for some reason, but he did. It was like late at night on
Oh,
the story.
weird.
And yeah, just heard it all over his house, and then like stayed up all night because he was scared pretty much, and rocked back and forth.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and was completely freaking like devastated pretty much by this. Like I might have fucking like opened the door at that point, you know,
Yeah.
like kick some kids.
Now things like that happen though. I mean, my dad had stories like that too. I don't know if Marcus told this story before, but I don't know if it was black-eyed children or whatever, but they thought it was like maybe Indian medicine or something.
Right.
But he lived in a house with my grandma, I think at the time, and they lived downstairs, and in their room there was or actually downstairs there was a door to outside. It was like a weird shaped house. Right. And he gets this knocking, and it's calling his name, and it was a girl. And my mom gets pissed off because she's like, "Who's knocking at your door, calling your name, whatever?" And it's like Champ, and trying to get his attention. And they don't know who the hell this was, and he goes upstairs to go outside, and he hears that girl knocking from the inside now.
Oh, gross.
And they couldn't figure it out. And my grandpa, he was a minister at the time, and he told him, he says, "Don't go out there." He says, you don't want to mess with this thing. He says, "You don't know what this is." And my dad, I think how the story went was, he went open the door to see what would happen, and he could still hear it calling his name at the door.
Oh shit! And then nothing was there.
Nothing was there.
Wow, that would freak me out.
And it's like one of his many stories like that. But it's like
Right. Yeah,
it's like
he
how
has
do
a
you
bunch of stories.
Yeah, it's like how do you make that up? You know what I mean? Especially my mom wouldn't. She's never. Well, I don't know. She's had some experiences too, but it's nothing in her wheelhouse to support something like that if it wasn't true. You know what I
Right.
mean? And she'd be like, "Oh yeah, it wasn't like that, but yeah, she was there and she witnessed it." And it's like, how does that happen? And it's like some of these accounts with these black-eyed children is they get along the lines of almost paranormal. Well, they are pretty much paranormal,
Right.
but they kind of pull from all these other areas in the paranormal field where it's like they're more maybe like shadow people-ish, or like the knocking around the house and things like that, or they're more alien and things of that nature. It's like they pull all these other elements to their being, and it's like people are having a hard time, especially in the past 20 years, identifying what these things could be, or even trying to tie it into a certain field of what they could be.
Right.
And it's a strange thing to it's really cool to follow too, because like it's interesting. It's like how do these, and especially people who have no motivation to make up lies like this, and or if they were lying about their stories, like they have no motivation to do these things, and they tell these stories like this where they see black-eyed children, and it's like, how does that happen? You know what I mean? It's like, what are these things?
Right. And I think like one of the things too, like the reason there's so many more reports nowadays is because like, remember old, like talking to like your grandpa or something, like a lot of them older people from like the 80s and stuff like that, and like the 70s, when stuff like that would happen, they would just like,
Right.
no, be
Yeah.
like, I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Be like, some logical reason. And then they won't share with nobody either.
And I mean, there was a huge, this was like they call it like the spiritual era of back then. It's like everyone's into, whether that's church, whether that's people dabbling in Ouija boards. This was a time, especially with Houdini growing up, like in the, what was it, like the 30s or 40s, something like that.
Something like that.
And around that time, there was all these mediums coming out, and this was like a huge spiritual time.
Right.
And if it's something new like that, I mean, if it's something new to you especially, you want to brush it off. And I think that's where a lot of these people come from. It's like you just brush it off.
Right. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
But yeah, anyway, let's get into a couple of these
Stories?
I guess. Did you want to tell yours first?
No, you can steal that story. You had a better version, I think.
There's a story I was watching of this guy. I think it was like in the 80s or something, and he was driving along a road in Texas, and you know how them Texas roads are, they're just freaking straight, and there's like nothing in between towns.
Right.
Kind of like Montana.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so he pulls over the road because he has to go to the bathroom, which all of us have done that before.
Yeah.
You know, and while he goes pee, turns right back around to where his truck is, and because he like got off the road for some reason, and like peed in like the canal instead of like peeing right next to his truck.
Oh, funny.
Like a
Yeah.
normal person.
Yeah.
But he turned around to go back to his truck, and there's a kid sitting there.
In his truck?
No, just standing next to his truck.
Oh, okay.
And wants a ride. And he had that over
Dread feeling.
sense of fear, you know.
And he's in the middle of nowhere?
And what?
In the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, he's in the middle of nowhere.
Whoa.
There's a kid standing there. So kid's asking him for a ride, kind of demanding a ride. And he notices his eyes are black. And so the guy hops in his truck and drives off. Well, and then he starts thinking to himself while he's driving off, you know, like, I was in the military, all this other stuff. Like, why am I scared of a kid? Maybe that kid's in trouble. Turns around to go back to the kid, and there's nobody there.
Oh, strange.
He like got out of his truck again and searched around with a flashlight. Could not find the kid.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, and that's just like one of the many stories like that, where people are driving, and like, you know, pull off the side of the road, and a kid knocks on their window.
Yeah, and that's how it is with a lot of these black-eyed, and it's hard to even tell your story sometimes, I think, with these people, because like it's almost identical to a lot of these other accounts.
Right.
Of where these kids show up exactly the same way to the people. They're trying to ask for help, or they want to use your phone,
or something.
Yeah.
You know, they want something out of you.
And there was one YouTuber I watch, and he's a well-known YouTuber, so people probably heard this story if they were on YouTube right now. But he was telling his story, and he was talking about how he had an account. He didn't think about it until years later, until he started hearing more about black-eyed children. And he says it was late one night, maybe like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's editing his videos or whatever, and he gets a knock at his door. And his mom's lives with him in this house, and he goes to the door, he answers it, and it's this girl, and she has glasses on, though. And this is kind of different from black-eyed children's. Like, is there accounts like that?
Well, there's accounts that a lot of times the black-eyed children will try to hide their eyes.
Oh, right, or they'll
until they
look
come in
down or
the
something like
house.
that.
They'll like keep their bangs in their eyes
Right.
or look down.
It's like the last thing they show you.
Is their eyes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like they want to trap you first, or
Right.
like get you almost
And
like
what's weird is they're like vampires.
yeah, they have to be invited in.
They have to be invited in.
That's how like Men in Black are though too. Is like it's almost like they have to be invited in your house.
The Men in Black did?
Yeah.
I need to freshen up on my Men in Black.
It's like every account I've looked into, it's like these Men in Black have to be invited in your house.
Right.
And it's like they knock on your door, they're cordial, and then they want to come in your house.
Which times have changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like back in the day, like you see it in all the movies, when somebody knocked on your door, you immediately invited them in.
Yeah, but now if someone knocks on your door, it's like, who's at my door?
You're like, why didn't you text first? Like, well, what are you doing?
It's like not to answer your door no more because
right.
Who's going to come knocking at that time?
And we all hear these messed up stories.
Yeah. There's
like,
only
I
one...
answered the door. Nobody texted me.
There's only one person to answer the door for every single time because he knocks the exact same way. And that's L. I know his knock. But this kid had an account, a weird one. And he said this girl wanted to sell him magazines, but she didn't have any magazines on her. There was like nothing around her. She didn't have any.
Right.
He asked her, he said, okay, so like, where's your, she's like, you want to buy some magazines? And he says, okay, where's your book full of like magazines to look at? And she said she didn't have them. And he's like, okay, so how am I going to buy magazines from you? And then she gets more aggressive with him and asking him to come inside. And he says, no, I'm not gonna let you inside. You don't have your magazines. I'm not giving you money, whatever. And he shuts the door. And then his mom gets home and he tells her this story. And it was like, it creeped him out afterwards, but while it was happening, it wasn't too
creepy.
Yeah, it wasn't too creepy. And then he started thinking about it years later. And then he was like, maybe what if this was a black-eyed kid?
Right.
And it's possible because like, what if that was her last resort was to show him her eyes?
Right.
And he was talking about how these accounts where they come to your door and they're more lenient with you, and then as you start refusing them, they start getting more aggressive with you.
Right.
And I think at that point maybe they show your eyes. I don't know, but it's like
yeah. I listened to a story yesterday about this lady went into the salon for something, like to get her hair done, and left the kid in the car or something. And a kid was knocking on the door of the car to try to get in the car. The kid wouldn't let him in. And so the black-eyed kid was trying to freak the other kid out and just continued to knock and scream at him to let me in your car. And the other guy wouldn't do it. And when his mom came out of the salon, he was like in the fetal position on the floorboards of the car.
Oh my gosh.
And freaking out about this black-eyed kid.
There was one exactly like that, but it was somewhat the same. But he said he was sitting in a car. You just reminded me of that story too.
Right.
And I was like, I thought you were stealing my story again.
I have another one just like that.
He was this is a kid too, and he was sitting in a car, and his mom was in buying, or his mom or dad was in a store buying something, or it might have been a salon too. That's why I was like, man, some of these stories are too damn similar.
They're all similar.
It's hard. But this one is he's in the car and he sees this kid walking back and forth on the sidewalk, and he's quite a bit away from him. Right. But they're the only two on the street that he notices. Like, he's in his car and there's this only one little kid walking around, and he said he's about like 6-7 years old or something like that, or maybe like 10 years old. and then that kid notices him sitting in the car, and he looks to him, and he starts walking towards the car slowly. And he gets in the car, and he starts knocking on the window, trying to get in. And that kid's like, no, I'm not letting you in the car. And he says, he's really trying to get in the car. And this kid, too, gets on the floorboard and just hides there.
Right.
And he didn't move there. And he said maybe about 10 minutes, this kid was knocking on the door. And he said this kid had black eyes as well.
Right.
And he was knocking for 10 minutes, trying to get in the car and being like really aggressive. And then
Yeah,
finally,
I think that's the same story.
Is it?
Yeah.
And then does he that kid go into the shop and try to get the keys?
Oh, no, maybe it is different then.
Yeah. This kid gives up and goes into the shop and bothers the mom now.
Demands the
and
keys.
Yeah, wants her keys for the car.
Wow.
And she's telling this kid no, and he's really trying to get the keys. And then he gives up, and then his mom leaves immediately and goes to the car and finds her son on the floor.
See, it's crazy. I would not sit there and argue with a kid about that, like,
right. It's
get
like,
out of here.
I mean,
I give you no keys.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine? Like, it's too bad. Like, I wonder, like, when that was. Like, did they have video cameras in the store?
Right.
Like, I'd be like, see the audacity of this little kid? Like, you need to beat your kids, people.
Yeah, it's like some of these stories too. It's like you read these on the internet, and it's hard to date some of these.
Right.
It's like they don't give any time frame on them. Some of them are actually real accounts where people attach their names to it. Like this happened to me.
Right.
And then you get into other stories where it's like almost like storytelling, but it's like some of these accounts seem real to me, but it's like how I don't understand. It's like It's a weird subject to get into.
And like like we were saying before, the kids are so persistent that a lot of the stories just all match up.
Right.
Because they want either your phone or to get in.
Right, and maybe that's one of their tactics is they want it to sound like the next story.
What do they want though? Like what do they want to get in for?
Right, and when they get inside, well, there's that account like you were about to tell at the end. Is like, but once they get inside, what's their end goal?
Right.
You know what I mean? Once they, because let's let you have it. You tell your story.
All right, I have another one before we get to that.
Okay, go ahead. Tell it.
It was kind of similar to the last one, where a mother leaves her kid in the car and goes into the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's not in there very long. She comes back out, gets in her car, looks in the rearview mirror, and there's a black-eyed kid sitting next to her.
Oh, wow.
And what happened was, like, the little boy asked to get in the car, so the other little boy let him in.
Oh, my God.
And she freaked out, grabbed her kid out of the car, went back into the store, had, like, a panic attack until her husband came. She drove her husband's car back with her kid. The husband took her car back and ended up getting in a car accident on the way there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Man, the way you told that story just gave me the chills like it just happened.
Right. It was freaking, like at first, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, it's just like this salon story.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Asshole kid, but this kid was in the car. Have you ever had that feeling when you get in your car and you look like
all
at night into your rearview mirror?
I always turn the lights on and look.
When we went to the cemetery and we seen the specter out there.
Oh, right.
For like a month. That was like my fucking fear. I was looking at my back seat. Yeah, I was like, something's back there. It's 10-2 all the way home. I don't want to look into my rearview mirror.
We did an alien podcast, me and Marcus. That night was disgusting. I told the story in the podcast, but it was just a disgusting night. It like everything went wrong with their podcast. And not only that, that morning was a weird morning for me because I watched Bob's Burgers like religiously.
Right.
And like, have you heard that story? Where I turn on Bob's Burgers and these, now talk about black-eyed children. Freaking my whole TV show was like black-eyed Bob's Burgers. Freaking
what?
Yeah, every single one of the characters in the show had black eyes. Like round, like Coraline eyes.
Like were you dreaming this or
no?
Like,
I was awake.
It a glitch?
No, I was. It was weird because that night we were supposed to do the podcast that night. The night before, me and Marcus were watching videos and researching, and trying to go over our notes and stuff and talk about the podcast, and because we're trying to do that now,
Right.
And And he leaves, and when he leaves that night, he has the grossest feeling. And I had the grossest feeling too, like in the house, and I had to. We set up that night.
Was that when you put your paper towel on the door?
This was just like a couple podcasts ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he leaves, and I have this just weird feeling on me, like, God, I've researched aliens, but that night was something weird for me. That was probably a good minute that it was off. We usually just run pictures off and it shut off. But
Oh, so I had to backtrack now?
yeah. So it just started a new recording.
Oh.
It said 4 minutes or 4 hours, but I don't know. Anyways, Marcus had this grossest feeling, and he leaves, and he's creeped out.
Right.
Like, he's legitimately creeped out. Like, we were researching this and talking about this, and we were creeping ourselves out to the point where it's like, God, I can feel it on my back. You know what I mean? And he said when he gets in his car, he has the grossest feeling. And he's got to, because not only that, we told a story. I told him a story that night that I had just remembered. And it was this author, and this guy actually has real accounts. And they did a documentary on him called Extraordinary. And he actually has contact with aliens that are like children. And there was one photo that he posted. He was outside his backyard, and he snaps a picture of flowers because they're just now blooming. And he's got a massive backyard. And on his porch, there's like these, like the bars that come up, whatever, like the wooden, whatever, stakes. And underneath that, like it was like raised a little bit, there was a little girl there. And there was nobody in his backyard, but it was to a T what he explained how these children attributes were.
Right.
Because he said they're almost angelic. He's seen them before. And this girl, big eyes, and they're blue. Like the bluest of blue eyes, and she has blonde hair and light complected. And he sees these all the time, and they intercept his phone calls. And I told him that story.
What?
Yeah. And he has real recordings of this too, them intercepting his phone calls with him and his wife. And he's talking to these kids. And it happens a lot. And I told this story to Marcus, and it creeped him out.
Didn't Marcus, like, last year hear, like, a little girl crying or something outside his window?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I was him, I'd be freaked out. Anything to do with kids.
Yeah, it's like the weird, and this, every time I mean, it's always with the podcast. It's never anything else. Like, we have other plans to do other things, and it's never happened. Nothing's ever come of it. No weird activity around the house. But every time we want to do a podcast, just weird crap starts happening like that. Like if it's a big podcast, like the This Man Conspiracy podcast,
Right.
or La Llorona, and things like that. Like we actually have our own accounts before we even do the podcast. And this night, he gets in his car, and it's like freaking 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And he told me the next day, he said, I had the grossest feeling when I got in my car. And he says, I literally thought someone was sitting in my back seat the whole ride home. And he kept having to look and check his mirror.
Right.
And he gets home, and he says, even walking in the house, he said that everything was off in this house. Dark. And he said he had the grossest feeling all night until he went to sleep and woke up. And then he tells me that. I wake up the next morning, I turn on YouTube because I'm trying to research more, and I already have Alien. It's still up there, like all these Alien videos. I watch maybe about a half hour of that, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm freaking creeped out again. So I go to my bedroom to like calm down a little bit, turn on the TV, and everything's normal. The menus and everything are normal, and it's a Roku TV, and everything's fine. Everything's working fine, sounds fine. And then I go to Hulu, go to Bob's Burgers, everything's fine, and then I press play. And then it comes on, and it's Bob sitting in the car with this other character, Edith, an old lady.
Right.
And both their eyes are just black. And the hue on them, their coloration was way discolored. Like it was like opaque. Like it's like where they're colored with freaking pastels.
Oh, okay, like oil
like,
pastels.
Yeah. And I was just sitting there like, I was like, oh my God. And I turned it off, turned it on again. It happened again. And I recorded it and sent it to Alethea on Snapchat. And then I didn't think to save it.
Oh, shit.
But about a week or so later, somebody does an art piece, and it's in a Bob's Burgers group, and it's the exact same thing I saw on the TV.
Weird.
And it was that whole day was freaking weird. And that was the morning we were going to do the podcast, and Marcus gets here, and it took us literally like 4 or 5 hours to do the podcast because we kept having malfunctions. Our computer kept shutting off, our TV wasn't working, and the camera kept shutting off on us.
It was just a whole mess.
Yeah, entire mess. And it took us like, about 3, 4 hours to record. Wow. And we finally got it down.
Hey, we're only pushing about 2.5 hours right now.
Yeah, it's freaking hard, but...
Wow, that's crazy, though. Luckily, nothing bad's happened tonight yet.
I know. It's actually a smooth podcast.
So far.
But it's like...
me not being able to understand my own notes.
But it's like, what are these... It's like, when you get into these podcasts, though, it's like some of these things just bring that weird feeling with it.
Right.
And it's like, it almost lends its credibility to these things. You know what I mean? Because like what other things make you feel that way? I mean, if you feel fearful of something, sometimes even those things don't bring that much fear with it. And then you talk about something like this, and you have this weird feeling on you, and it's like just disgusting. I don't know how to explain it. It's weird.
Every single time that we've all like gone to try to go ghost hunting and stuff, I just feel gross.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody mentions a Ouija board, I feel gross. I don't know. If I were to like see 2 little black-eyed children right now, I'd probably like try to Spartan kick them.
I don't know if you can.
Right.
I don't.
Remember your dad has that story. I think we've said it on another podcast where like he was like a janitor at school.
Oh right.
And he actually hit a little kid.
Yeah, actually hit
with a ball.
Because it was like a regular occurrence. And he actually saw a little girl and grabbed a dodgeball and chucked at this girl and made her cry. Yeah.
I can totally see myself doing that. Just because all these damn stories.
Okay. All right, let's go to your next story.
Okay.
Is this your closer?
I got another one before that one.
Oh, go ahead.
But it's not very long. It was just some kid was walking home, maybe like a preteen or something.
Right.
And he lives in a rural area. Apparently, everybody lives in a rural area in these stories.
Right.
But he's walking home. He's walking down a dirt road to get to his house. You know, like sometimes your house is down the field a little bit. You have to walk down like a dirt driveway. Well, as he's walking, there's this kid leaning against the post, and he's trying to walk past him, and the kid says something to him. So he turns around. He said, "What?" And the kid's like, "I want to come home with you. Take me to your house." And the guy's like, "No, like I don't know you. Like, who are you?" You know, he comes from a small town in the story, so like they know everybody. He's never seen this kid before,
right?
And the kid wants to come home with him. Well, he says no. And then the kid looks up and has black eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And so he starts hauling ass home, running. And then the black-eyed kid was making a, like, screeching or like he described it as, like, the sound of, like, a bobcat.
Oh, weird.
The black-eyed kid was, like, yelling at him as he ran off.
Whoa.
And that was just another little story that I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've never heard them make...
broad daylight. He was walking home from school.
Yeah, that's strange. I've never even read anything like that where they make actually a noise like that.
Yeah, like a screeching noise. I thought that was weird. You know, like I never heard another Black-Eyed Children story where they made a bobcat noise.
Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah, and he ran, and this was supposed to take place in like the 50s or 60s.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, it's like I don't even see kids my age around here.
Right.
We live in a small town too.
Super small.
And every time I see a kid like that's actually like a older teenager, I'm like, hey, look, it's a teenager. It's like I never see them here. It's weird.
Yeah. It seems like they're always either just grown-ups like you or little kids.
Yeah. So if they're black-eyed children here, we'd spot them out easily.
Right. And there's no teenagers around. They just stay inside. TikTok all day.
Fortnite.
You don't see people riding bikes or nothing anymore.
No. All right, now you have the story that you actually stole from me.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But you can probably tell it better because I don't remember part of the story. So,
All right. So the story is there's this. My story was it's an elderly couple.
Right. And
Yours
mine
was
was
it
a-
was just a normal couple,
Yeah.
right? But there's this elderly couple that live in a rural part of Vermont, and it's kind of like snowy or rainy or somehow it's bad weather outside. And her and her husband are just sitting there lounging around, you know, taking it easy, and they hear a knock at the door. And so the woman goes and she opens the door, and there's two kids sitting there, a boy and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of have their head down, and they ask to come inside. They're like, "Can we come inside? Our parents will be here soon." And so the old lady was like, "Yeah, come on in."
right.
And just leads them to the living room where her husband's at, and then goes off to the kitchen to like make them some cocoa or something, and then comes back, and her husband has his like head in his hands, and they asked to go to the bathroom, and so she's like, "Yeah, it's down the hall, you know," and they run off to the bathroom. And her husband has a nosebleed that she finally notices. His nose is bleeding real
right.
bad. And that's why his hands were on his face. And then the power goes out.
Oh, strange.
And then this woman doesn't think anything of it. You know, power goes out. The cat starts freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
She goes to check on the kids. When she starts making her way towards the bathroom, they're already out of the bathroom and in the hallway.
Oh, disgusting.
And they're just standing there mumbling to themselves.
Oh, weird.
And then she catches, our parents are here. And so they run out the front door. And so she kind of like follows them out the door. And there's two figures standing there by a car. And two men is what she said.
Mm-hmm.
Two like tall, skinny men. And she tries to wave at them and like say hello, and they don't do nothing. And the kids and the parents get in the car and drive away.
Right, they don't respond to her.
They don't respond. Well, after all this happens, like an hour later, they say that the power comes back on, and that guy had a really bad nosebleed still, and was kind of getting that panicky feeling, you know, like they do with the black-eyed kids. The woman never did get the weird feeling.
Strange.
But her cat that was freaking out, she had 4 cats. 3 of them went missing. And then the one that was freaking out at the time when the kids were there, they found in like a pool of blood, dead.
Wow.
So all 4 cats gone. And then like later on, like a month later, the husband's diagnosed with like skin cancer. It's almost like these kids are like radioactive.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And he was in the room with them the longest.
Yeah. Yep. He was sitting in there.
And she had like minimal contact with them.
Right. And he was saying that he was trying to like ask the kids like what they were doing out and stuff like that. And he said they wouldn't answer.
Right.
Until the old lady came back, and then they wanted to go to the bathroom. And it was just kind of a weird, creepy story. And it's actually a really famous story because everybody knows it.
Right.
Every time I researched black-eyed children, this story came up.
You had some little peppered new information in there.
Right. And it comes to the thing.
Like the mumbling to themselves, that was kind of new. That creeped me out a little bit.
Yeah. Mumbling to themselves in the hallway, you know?
Yeah.
The power's out.
That's
Little boy and a little girl the same age.
Oh, God.
Mumbling to themselves in the hallway. Like, yeah, fuck these little
It's
kids.
like, how do the parents have you the same time?
Right.
It's like...
But, yeah, it's kind of creepy. And then, like what you were saying earlier with the Men in Black.
Right. It's like they're identical accounts almost.
Right.
It's like they come to the door, they want to come in. But the Men in Black have a different alternative, though. It's like a different objective. They come to the door and they have questions about a sighting you had or something like that.
Right.
These kids don't really seem to have an end goal in mind.
No, it's almost like they just want to like infect you with their presence.
Right. And one of our theories about Men in Black was, what if it's like almost like a study program with like aliens, whatever. There's abductions, there's people getting like implanted with things, and then there's visits for Men in Black.
Right.
So it was like, what if all of these are tied into like cattle mutilations and things like that? It's like, what if all these are tied into like different branches of their like hierarchy and coming to research you,
Right.
research humans anyways. And like the men in black coming into the home, being polite and having manners and coming in and interacting with people. And is that part of the research? You know what I mean? And also when they have sightings of things and they come and try to intimidate you, is that also part of the research? You know what I mean? It's like, how do you react to these things, and what is their end goal as well?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of, could be anything.
Right.
You know, like the whole black-eyed children thing with the Men in Black could be, maybe it's a social experiment kind of with them.
Yeah.
But then because they're,
maybe it's an easier way into the door than two men in black come into your door.
right, children, you know, you always want to help children.
Right.
Until you listen to this, and then you're like, nah, I ain't helping
Yeah, I'm
children.
not good. I'm not answering the door.
Children are creepy, though.
Girl Scouts, yeah, their business is down the drain.
Kids and had like my kids as friends over, and kids are creepy.
Yeah,
Like,
they are
especially
creepy.
ones that you're not used to. Like, my kids are creepy.
Yeah.
But I'm used to their creepiness. With the other kids,
Yeah.
like one of my son's friends, like, I'll be like playing video games or watching TV. He'll just stand there and stare at me.
Oh my God, are you
Yeah, I'm
serious?
like, yo, what's up? And he just never answers me, and then he'll run off. I'm like,
How old? Your kids are around.
Mason's 6, and this
Okay.
kid that comes over, he's a neighbor kid. He's like 8.
Okay, that's strange.
Yeah, and he just like stares at me, and I'm like, "Can I help you? You know what I mean? That you want to sit down and watch TV?" You know, and then he just runs off.
Oh
And he
my
does that
God.
all the time. And then Mason does that shit too now. He'll just stare at me and just breathe heavy because he's kind of a big kid. And I'm like, "What do you need?" Dude, the other day he got his Halloween costume.
Right.
Some fucking
What's it gonna be?
Fortnite like jackal looking thing.
Oh right.
And I feel so weird. I'm a light sleeper, so if somebody
Oh.
stares at me while I'm sleeping,
You
I'll
can
wake
feel
up.
it.
Well, I get that feeling. I turn over and look, and he's standing at the foot of my bed with this costume on. And like, I wasn't like scared or nothing, but it was kind of creepy. I was like, "What are you doing?" He just stared at me. I was like, "Get out of here!" And then he just turned and slowly walked out of the room. I was like, "What the hell is that about?" Like, Jessica woke up. She's like, "What?" I was like, "Your kid's fucking weird." She's like, "That's your kid," you know.
Man, these kids do some weird stuff, and my youngest she's an odd one. She's not afraid of the dark. We can turn the lights off, she'd be fine. She can play in the dark. She likes odd things. She likes odd food. I mean, like weird stuff, like avocados and things like that.
Right.
Like she's into it.
Because avocados are weird.
Yeah, it's like that's my food.
For a little
Yeah, for a little
anyway.
kid, it's like you don't crave that.
Right.
And she just does a lot of weird stuff, and she says some weird things too. And one day, and I talked to my friend Crystal Hamilton, who owns Stones and Bones, and she's always telling me, she's like, yeah, that kid's she's an oddball, and she says you gotta ask her questions of like what she was or who she was in her past life, because she's just an odd character.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know if I want to.
Right? Just
And
open
then-
up a bag
and
of
then-
worms.
Yeah, but then the day before that, I didn't know this. Alethea actually asked her who she was, just to see what she would say, because kids say some weird stuff. And she told Alethea, she said, I had a mom and a dad. She calls me Papa. She
Right.
calls Alethea Mom. She doesn't call me Dad. And she knew, and she calls this person another thing. She calls him Dad and Mom. And we had a dog and a bunny. And it sounded like she was the only child. And then she said, one day my parents went away and I fell into the black.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. And I was like, that's strange. And it's like, is that how she got here? To me, it was like maybe she passed away, and then her falling into the black was like her transition to here or something.
Right.
Of how I would put it anyways.
Right. It was black, and then bam.
Yeah. Now
Black
she's
again.
here.
And now she can remember stuff.
Yeah. And it was the weirdest thing in the world to hear, because she's always been a little odd. You know what I mean? It's like how
My
I was.
little girl thinks she's a werewolf.
Yeah, it's like how I was as a kid though as well. It's like I was a little odd. I like playing by myself and reading.
Still kind of odd.
Yeah, I still like being alone. But it's like yeah, and then Lethea told her like she has to stop now because she's starting to tell her a lot of these stories, and she just keeps going with them, telling her all these things.
Yeah, that's enough. You're alive now, so it's cool.
Yeah, tells her bunny's name and her dog's name and things like that. What her dad did and what her mom does for her and things like that.
Oh, that's creepy.
And she uses words too that are just odd. Like she used the word human to talk about somebody. And uses words like that, like some big words too. And it's like strange. It's like, how do you know these words?
It's like out of her vocabulary.
Yeah. And she likes watching a lot of these shows, but she'll also watch like grown-up shows with me, and she'll sit there and watch them with me. But then just the words that she uses are just out of the ordinary for kids.
Right.
But she also likes to do like I Spy games and books and stuff, and she'll go through and like she'll sit there and just look for things.
You know, like we're gonna have to do a whole like podcast on reincarnation.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, the human mind's so crazy, right? And everybody's like spirit energy is so crazy. I wonder if there's like multiple things going on. You know what I mean? Like for some people there is reincarnation. Some people there is like just an afterlife.
Right.
So like you hear, like I've watched stories and listened to stories about kids that have been reincarnated, but why doesn't everybody feel that way?
Right.
And like a lot of the ones, kind of like your little girl, there was that little girl in India or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one in India, she like lived to be like in her 20s or something.
Wow.
And then like remembered everything, like remembered how to get to her old house.
That is strange.
As a little girl, knew her parents' names and everything. So I wonder if I just start believing in reincarnation right now, and like just full on believe in it,
that you would be reincarnated.
Reincarnated,
right?
Because like the energy of all of our spirit, you know, has the ability to do that.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
And it's strange too, and I always tell our listeners too. It's like we grew up Pentecostal, so we believe in heaven and hell. We believe we die, we go to heaven, right? But then when we do the podcast, I always tell Marcus is like when I go into research something, I always want to go get the whole book and things,
right? And
leave everything open. It's like when we talk about a certain subject, okay, for this period of time, we're going to believe in this subject and go forward with believing in it. And also, like different ideologies and religions and things. It's like we jump into those things and we try to investigate them as you would be if you were to be religious in that.
Right, you got to be unbiased with it.
Right, unbiased with it. And not go like, this is wrong, or whatever. And it opens up a lot of new cool thinking. And is you can actually apply certain things to your life if they have good outcomes for your life.
Right.
And it's like a really cool thing to get into, and especially this podcast. And it's kind of strange too, because we jump in all these other podcasts and we dive deep into those things and we try to believe in those things, and then we come out of it and we're like, man, that was kind of weird.
Right.
And it's strange. It changes your thinking a lot of times.
Right. That's why people are so interested in this subject, the paranormal and the unknown and stuff. It's because, you know, if you have an open mind, you want to know things. You want to know everything.
Right.
And there's a big fan base for that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we have fans that are interested in listening to us.
Yeah.
Jumble around my bad notes.
I'm happy that you told that story though, because it's like, I think that story is probably where the only story you hear where the kids actually get into the house.
Right.
And where actually something happens to one of the people involved with talking with them.
Right.
And I think that's why it's probably one of the most popular stories told. It's like all these other accounts is they have an account with them, they have an interaction with them, and then that's it.
Right.
They don't let them in the house. They don't let them in the car. They don't give them their keys. And then that's it. It doesn't happen again.
But this time they got inside.
Yeah, they got inside, and it's kind of odd. And it's like, how many other stories
I wonder
like
if
this?
those kids felt awkward. Like they actually got in. They're like, fuck, I don't know what to do.
Oh, right. And they have to go to the bathroom now.
Like, can we go to the bathroom? We gotta think this over now, because I don't know
like
what's going on.
You watch Sex Drive?
A long time ago.
It's where the two like the two young kids with like players trying to like talk
Oh
to the
yeah.
girls and
So you
cut.
do want a party?
Yeah.
It rolls the window up.
And then when when it finally happens, they don't know what to do.
Right.
And it's like, what if that's exactly it? It's like, what
They're
if,
like, oh, we've never actually been let in before.
we've
Like,
never been this far.
can we use your bathroom? Our parents will be here soon, yo. You're like, I gotta go.
Shut the power off. We gotta leave.
And the other one that the kid got in was the one with the car.
Oh, right. That was another one.
And then the husband got into a wreck, and then their little boy ended up getting sick too.
Right.
Like, I don't think I actually mentioned that, but it's in here.
That's strange.
That the little boy was getting sick, like coming down with like cold and measles and all this random sickness all the time.
You know, me and
after
Elise,
the encounter.
for a while there, for about the first few years of us being together, we experienced knocks. Everywhere we moved. Didn't matter where we were. We lived at my mom's house for a bit. And we finally got out of there. We had knocks in there too. We got out of there, moved into our own place. I actually moved with Erica and Juno for a bit.
Right.
And trying to find our feet, our footing. And yeah, we heard, it was just me and Alethea home one night. And there's a front door there just fine. But no, it knocks on the back door. And the back door didn't have the blinds.
Oh,
and there's a
shoot.
big old window there. And it, yeah, actually had the blinds, but they were up. And we heard knocking on there, plain as day, just. And we're like, what the heck? It's like, is that the back door? And she's like, yeah, who the hell's knocking on the back door? And I go to the front and look and see if there's any cars. Nobody. Because I didn't want to go to the back door just yet, because who knocks on the back door?
Right.
And then it knocks again.
Was this on Cody?
Yeah. No,
No.
Cody. The blue house on shoot. It's right down the, man. It's a hard place to describe.
Oh, okay.
But it's got a garage. But yeah, there's a knock there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to the door. And then when I go back there, it's a good 5-10 minutes after the knocking's done.
Right.
And they go to the door, and the door's cracked a little bit.
Oh, jeez.
And I have to shut it and lock it. I'm like, what the heck was that about? And then we move into our new place, and we're sitting in our computer room, our office, and we were just sitting in there alone, and we're working on something, and then we hear knocking on our window, because we lived in a basement apartment.
Right.
And there's like knocking, dunk, 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 dunk. And not only that, we didn't hear it just there, we heard it on this wall, which was to our kitchen, knocking.
So it was like outside and in the house at the same time?
And it's like, yeah, it's strange. It's like we have to do a podcast where we sit down and try to like mesh all of these urban legends together, because I know Bigfoot does knocking.
Right.
Black-eyed children do knocking. Men in black come to your door. And just a lot of weird folklore like that.
Right.
And try to tie those in together and see what we can pull out of it. Because I learned that, especially doing the podcast, when we try to mesh all these other elements and I'll pull all these other urban legends together with the topic of the night, it brings a lot of cool, different thinking of like, what the hell is this thing?
Right. Maybe they're all connected.
Yeah. Is that all you got for the night?
Yeah, that's all I got on the Black-eyed children.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. I have my good friend here, Aaron Baker, and he'll be joining me for some more podcasts coming forward.
Yep.
And I'm going to be trying to get on board with releasing more podcasts every week. And I actually have to do more podcasts as well with Stones and Bones. I think you wanted to jump on there as well.
Yeah. And with After Horizons, we're going to be doing some stuff here.
Right. Are you guys going to be talking to, what are you guys going to be doing? Is it going to be...
we might have a couple podcasts and then maybe some new music coming out.
All right.
It's been slow, you know.
Yeah.
Like with the COVID, and then my other half or whatever, he's been working real bad, and
Yeah.
I haven't been working, so I've
Right.
just been playing Stay at Home Dad.
Yeah.
And so hopefully we get some stuff going.
Yeah. You said he.
Huh?
You said he. He's working. You mean Jessica?
No, Aaron.
Oh, okay.
The other Aaron.
Yeah, that sounded weird to me. I was like, hold on a second. Like you're married.
Not my married partner, my hetero
Yeah.
life mate.
Yeah. But you guys are going to do podcasts about, you guys talking about gear, guitar gear and all that stuff, or?
Yeah, we want to start doing that again. Like we had released one on YouTube. I think we might have put it on Facebook too, and
Right.
then shit just happened
Right.
with this virus.
And that's facebook.com/After Horizons, right?
Yep.
And at After Horizons on YouTube.
Yep.
Or you just search After Horizons on YouTube.
Just
guys?
search After Horizons. I think it has to all be capitalized.
Yeah, yeah. So we have some podcasts coming out there, and I think you're jumping on Stones and Bones with me as well. And I want to do a Halloween a special for Stones and Bones. I'm hoping to do that within this week and release it Halloween. Talking about, I messaged Marcus. Well, I think he's gonna jump on there as well. Just talking about haunted artifacts or something, because Stones and Bones is into artifacts and things like that. So I'm trying to pull that era or that genre to the podcast.
Break another million-year dinosaur ring.
Yeah, freaking sucked. The reference, some people didn't get it, was Marcus said it goes in the bowl now, and I have this bowl full of just discarded stones and
broken shit.
Yeah, broken rocks and agates and crabs that goes in that bowl now.
That ring you gave me that broke on my birthday, did you put that in the bowl?
No, it should go in the bowl.
I don't know where it went. It disappeared after that night.
I think I took it in my pocket or something. I don't know. But you guys can find them at After Horizons on Facebook. You guys can find us if you guys are listening out there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you may be. Search us at facebook.com/Fallen Hour. That is patreon.com/Fallen Hour. And YouTube, just search Fallen Hour. Also, if you guys are into metaphysical properties, stones, healing stones, crystals, search stones-bones.com and at Stones Bones Billings on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Now, that being said, my name is Sid Atlantic. This is Aaron, and you're listening to Fallen Hour Radio. Wheezy, we almost forgot. Finger guns!
When there is no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
If you're not of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, you're not welcome here.
In the middle of the night, ghosts try to talk to me.
It's interdimensional. So we are living in a multi-dimensional environment.
He's bending down, doing something. He says he sees a shadow. He turns around and there's nobody there.
The power of Christ compels you.
I want you to tell me whether you remember what happened to you when you died.
I went blind. Then I had an hemorrhage and I fell asleep and I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
How come we kill you, Bill?
By faith, God.